Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Future of Jewish podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Hoffman. On this episode, I am joined by Merav Oren. She is the CEO of the culinary arm of ANU, Museum of the Jewish People, the world's biggest Jewish food platform. She is also the founder of a co-working space and ecosystem for women entrepreneurs called WMN, as well as the founder of OpenRestaurants, a marketplace that enables foodies from all over the world to experience top chef restaurants from within. Enjoy my conversation with Merav Oren. Merav, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. Before we talk about Foodish and all the great things that you have going on today, why don't you give us a peek behind the curtain of who you are, where you came from, all that good stuff?
I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I call myself a passioner, which is a passionate entrepreneur, a serial and multidisciplinary entrepreneur, because I think I've been dealing with anything you can dream of or think of. I've been doing it in a way. I come from the culinary world. On one hand, tech and innovation. I work with cities. My biggest project started in 2012 after I had breast cancer, and I'm fine and everything's okay. But after that year, like I call it the cancer year, because two major projects were born that year. One was called WMN. It still is called WMN. It's a co-work space and ecosystem for women-led ventures, which means startups that are led by women. And it was first of its kind in the world. So when I started in 2012 and 2013, the place itself was built in the Namal, the harbor of Tel Aviv, the port of Tel Aviv. It was a model for a lot of cities to come and see it from all over the world. Today, we're a very strong community led by around 300 women that are leading startups in all verticals you can dream of. The other project was called OpenRestaurants. It started as an option to have people, let them have a sneak peek to behind the scenes of their favorite restaurants, to meet the chef, to listen to his story, his or her story, and understand what it means to be a restaurateur. It grew up from 2012 to 2019 until the COVID to become an urban culinary festival that combined food with everything from art to design, innovation, and tech. Over 120 events and activities in 5 days all over Jerusalem, with 40 journalists and bloggers from all over the world coming to report about it and showing Israel and Jerusalem, but Israel in all, different than the conflict. I mean, a different point of view of what Israel is. And it really became a huge thing. And both of these projects, in a matter of fact, are the ones that led me to Foodish. Because when I was dealing with tech in one hand and innovation and culinary in the other hand, I joined Betat Futsot, which today is ANU, but it was Betat Futsot before ANU Museum was opened. And I was volunteering on the tech advisory board. And in one of our meetings, we had one of the supporters, our big friends of the museum, Bob Gottesman, came to the meeting. And we're sitting, everybody around the table thinking, okay, so what's the next big thing the museum wants to deal with? And how do we deal with Jewish identity in a different way that will appeal to young people all over the world and so on? And I think everybody around this table just said food, right? I mean, food is the thing that connects all of us. And this is how Foodish started, as a matter of fact. It wasn't really planned to launch a food project. So then we started looking what there is all around the world about Jewish food. And like you said, that in a way it was surprising, right? You interviewed 50 people and food never came up. There are tons of projects around Jewish food, from the Gevirteria to Jewish Food Society to everybody, really amazing stuff. But we still felt that there is a lot of room for everyone, and there's a way to do it a bit differently. So we started investigating and looking what there is and what there is missing and what is the way we think we should do it. And after having this amazing, bright, beautiful plan and what of our objectives are and so on, we decided to do 2 roundtable events, one in New York and one in Tel Aviv, and to ask our audience, what do they think, to get feedback from them. And the funny thing, it was March 2020. Which, what happened then, COVID came. I was literally on my way to the airport, to the event in New York, the roundtable event, and 2 good things happened because of COVID in a way. We switched the physical event to a virtual event online, so we could get feedback from a lot more people. And the second thing that happened with COVID is that everybody started dealing with their Jewish identity through food. What do I mean? Everybody started baking challahs, switching recipes, talking to each other. How did you celebrate that and that? Because it was also around Passover. So did your grandmother make I don't know, knedalach or chaimer? What's the recipe for that? And the the old people were remote and so on. So we just understood what we need to do. So it was a long answer for what I did until now. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's really interesting. I think there's a few things that stood out to me as you were talking about your background. One is entrepreneurship, tech, innovation. I want to ask you, take us through the thought processes of, coming to a meeting, as you said, sitting around a table and saying, what's the next big thing that ANU, Museum of the Jewish People, is going to do, all the way through the product that you have today. I mean, because I know there's a lot of ideation. I know there's a lot of trial and error, R&D. So just kind of take us through the evolution of some of those conversations and trials and experiments that led to where you are today.
Yeah, so building our work plan, we had like 6 different projects that we thought should be the first projects as part of Foodish. And just like you say, you start with the ideation, we connect you, you surround yourself with creative people, the best people that you can find, from product manager to content. Our chief editor, her name is Yonit. She's really one of the leading culinary persons here in Israel. And we started planning. How do we see it? How do we want it to look like? We all understood that it has to be a very smart digital platform that will have people all over the world can easily connect to each other and to their selves and to their families. And as a matter of fact, we just launched our website today, our digital platform. It's just up in the air after being working on it around a year and a half, from documenting Jews from all over the world, again, from Jewish communities that are in a sense that are going to not to be here very shortly, from the Yemenite people that cook very differently in a stove outside their houses and so on. So we have the ideation and the creative. Then we started working with the digital people, the building it's a website. It's not an app, but it's really a digital platform, because when you open a user, we will ask you what food communities do you want to join. If you're Sephardi, if you're Ashkenazi, if you're from Bulgarian or whatever, you can of course join more than one community, because most of the families are all mixed up. And then when you share your stories, I can then go and under my user, I can connect to you. I can comment, I can share my own stuff. And we call it, I can look for my memories through food. Because if I want to, like, I have a memory called something my grandmother used to make, my late grandmother used to make on Shabbat dinner. It's called kubate. Now, until this day, I haven't found anyone that knows what it is, except for my family. I don't know if there was even, a dish called kubate, but in our family, there was one. And probably it came from, not from where I come from. My grandmother came from Poland, but it's their neighbors were not from Poland. So we think it came from her neighbor. So if I can search from someone that knows kubate and connect to them and connect to the stories and to how I grew up and so on, that's the idea, to connect the people through the food in our website, which is a database that belongs to ANU Museum. I forgot to say the most important thing. Foodish is the culinary department of ANU Museum, which is formerly the Bet Futsot. And as a part of the museum has a lot of databases. We deal with pictures, photographs, communities, family names, and so on, music, and so on. And the next database is food. So at Foodish, what we're doing, when you are sharing your stories, your photographs, your recipes, and so on, it becomes part of the database of ANU Museum, which is the largest Jewish museum in the world. And when my great, not granddaughters, how do you say ninim, you say in Hebrew, will want to hear my story, they will go into the website of Foodish, the culinary department of the museum, and they can find the stories and connect to their heritage.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing, because food is in the Jewish world is quite unique. Jews were scattered all around the world before the state of Israel. And so they sort of had their Jewish food, but then they blended it with whatever the local culture and ingredients and surroundings that, if you were in Persia, if you were in Europe, or if you were in the States, or if you were in places like Japan and China, for example, once upon a time. India, South America. So I just find that it's very unique in that way, where it's sort of a hybrid, right, of sort of the in and the out, right? The in being the Jewish sort of traditions, and the out being the surroundings around Jews up until the state of Israel. And even today, we see a lot of sort of fusion restaurants in the States with a huge Jewish population there. You have a lot of sort of new and old coming together. You have a lot of Israelis that are moving abroad, opening up Israeli fusion restaurants around the world. What are like one, two, maybe three things that you've learned about Jewish food in the last few years that you didn't know before, that are like, wow, like that is so cool. That is so interesting.
I don't know if it's about Jewish food or about, first of all, what I learned. Listen, you can call me a foodie in a way, although I must say I do not like cooking. I love eating, but I'm not a big cook. And I'm always saying to my children, Friday night, Shabbat dinner, we have a great Shabbat dinner, and that's really something as a part of our Jewish heritage or Jewish culture. But it's not the food that I will bake and make and put on the table. Food is so much more than the food itself. It's the memory, it's the nostalgic, it's connecting us all. And if you're talking about Jewish food, so let's look at a Michael Solomonov restaurant, which won the best restaurant in the United States. And it's Jewish food at the end of the day, right? It's Israeli food, which is Jewish food. And you can find the gefilteria, which are taking the very old gefilte fish and making it hype and cool to the youngsters. And I think today, if you look around the world, and if you look at the social media, you will see so much young people proud of their Jewish identity, dealing with the food, with their Jewish identity through the food, cooking and sharing it all around. The challahs became a crazy thing all over the web and the social media, of course, not on the web only, from the challah prints, and everybody's making challahs in all kinds of colors and sizes and whatever all the time. I mean, so I think we didn't need to say it. It's just happening. It's grassroots. How do you say it? Like it's from the bottom?
Yep, grassroots.
Grassroots, I forgot the word, sorry. So it's like rising up from the bottom. I see a lot of young people enjoying it, having parties around it. In Israel, there was a Kegel party. In Jerusalem, in the Design Week. I mean, everybody's doing crazy, amazing stuff around Jewish food. So I think it got like a cool angle, which it didn't have before. This is what I'm experiencing while doing it. The other thing I'm experiencing, which is really amazing for me, we have events every last Friday of the month. It's called Kitchen Tales. And at the end of the event, we ask the audience if they want to ask anything. And always people raise their hand. And the truth is, they don't want to ask anything. They want to tell. They want to tell their stories. They want to share. They're looking for a place to share their memories and their stories. And when I grew up, it was like this. And when I grew up, my mother did like this and so on. And this is what we're going to do in our platform. That's the idea, because we understood that so many people are looking for, it's like the city square, for the city square just to share their stories and heritage and culture and switch memories and so on. That's what we're doing now. I spoke only about our about our digital platform, but we're doing it through so many events and festivals all over now Israel, as I said, but later on we're going to Poland, in October, and something in the United States in November. We did in May, Mimuna party in New York. So the idea is really to have people get together around the Jewish food all over the world. And we feel that there's a huge need for it.
Yeah, I love that, especially now where everyone's coming out of the pandemic and the lockdowns and, starting to travel again. I think one of the things that surprises me specifically about Israel is, everyone talks about Startup Nation, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes too, because being a female entrepreneur, I think is quite interesting. But I think a lot of people who come to Israel who haven't been here, whether they're Jewish or non-Jewish, they're really surprised at how good the food is. And I'm just wondering, how today we know, like the people that know, they know, but the people that don't know, they don't know. And most people don't know. And so, running this platform now for a few years and developing it, what are some of the lessons learned that you've taken from, sort of being the gateway to many people about not just Israeli food, Jewish food in general, but we know that, I always say it's about 70-30, in terms of
What do you mean 70-30?
Israel's place in the Jewish world, right? It's about 70% Israel focused, then 30% sort of the rest of the world. Not in terms of population size, but in terms of influence and impact and significance. And so I would say that, of all the great Jewish food, I mean, I would say more or less about 70% of it today is Israeli influence, Middle Eastern, whatever you want to call it. And, I'm just wondering, how would you characterize Israeli food to a stranger, somebody who's never had it before?
I think like you would characterize Israeli. We have the chutzpah. We're very colorful. We're very happy. Chukah. What's the word for chukah?
Passionate.
Passionate. I think Israeli food, because it's a melting pot. It's everything together. It's like crazy. It's fun. It's diverse. It's tasteful. It's very spicy, but not only harif. It's colorful. It's happy. It's marketful. I mean, it's like when I imagine the food, it's everything together. It has the chutzpah. It's something you want to touch, smell, use all of your senses around it. That's how I see it. I mean, a long time ago, when you said Jewish food, people would see the knedelach, krepalach, whatever, the lach, only the Ashkenazi food, which is good as well. I don't want to, of course, say a word about it. I come from an Ashkenazi house, and I think we have great food. But the whole amazing thing about the Jewish food, that it's a bit from everyone. Like you said, everyone here came from all over the world. So there's so many kinds of food. And when I told you we did those events, we're still doing, there was there is an event each time around a different community. So if it's Greek Jews, or if it's Romanian Jews, Bulgarian Jews, we had from South America, we had from Morocco, of course, we had from Lebanon, every place in the world. Now, just imagine, each one of them has a totally different kind of heritage, food, culture, and so on. So just imagine an event with all of them. We had a festival, we called it the Lost Pastries Festival. And what we did, we identified 9 different home bakers. Each one comes from a different kitchen, from a different place in the world, and makes pastry that nobody makes anymore, because it's hard, because it's a lot of work, because it's hard to find the ingredients and so on. And we connected each one of them to a different bakery, a boutique bakery all over Israel. And for 10 days, you could have bought in, let's say, Bar Lechem, you could have bought Yemenite Sabaya, or in Norandino, which is a great boutique place, you could have bought Lebanese Karavish, or in Kadosh in Jerusalem, you could have bought the Persian love cake, which I think you tasted when you were here in the museum and did the thing. So anyway, you could have tasted Jewish food from all over the world, which is totally different from one another. There was a kozonak, which is a Romanian kind of cake, and so on. As a matter of fact, we're starting next week another festival called it's dinners, meals from the cookbooks. Again, it's we are cooperating with 9 different restaurants all over Israel, and each one of them is doing a meal or just a tasting menu, which is inspired by one of the most amazing Jewish cookbooks from, again, all centuries and all over the world. From Cucina Tamar is doing from an Italian amazing book. Ha'achim in Tel Aviv is doing from Joe Nathan's book, of course. Midbach and Oded are doing from Claudia Rodin's book, and so on. And we're trying to have people have a look and taste, of course, of all kinds of different cuisines, Jewish cuisines, happy ones, celebrating life, and enjoying really good, tasty, and amazing food, inspired by all those amazing books.
I want to ask you a question about chutzpah, because we know that it comes from Yiddish, but we also know that it had a very negative connotation in Yiddish. The Israeli chutzpah that we often talk about can have both a positive and a negative connotation. You're obviously referring to the positive side when we talk about Israeli food. And I'm just wondering, I'm brainstorming aloud with you. I mean, where does Israeli chutzpah come from? Like, my theory is that, I don't know if you're familiar with the new Jew and the old Jew, Yehudi Chadash. But, basically for people that aren't familiar with it, it's this idea that before the state of Israel, Jews really kept to themselves. I mean, we know about the ghettos, but just in general, you could call them closet Jews, or, they didn't want to make too much noise because they were basically guests and wherever they were living around the world. And then we have the state of Israel. And all of a sudden we have this, it's a combination of passion and pride and sort of this resurgence of coming into our own, and not just, being a very small minority amongst a greater country, whether it's in Europe or the States or South America, Asia, Middle East, of course. We really all of a sudden can come out and beat our chest a little bit and not be shy and not think twice about, well, anti-Semitism or this, that, and the other. And then, of course, as we get stronger as a country, right, we start winning wars. Unfortunately, we have to fight the wars, but we win wars and you grow confidence. And only 6% of Jews were living in Israel in 1948. Now all of a sudden more Jews are coming to Israel from all around the world. They're bringing their own cultures, their own foods, their own lifestyle and social norms and things of that nature. And to me, that's where the Israeli chutzpah, which is the chutzpah that we're talking about now, starts to develop and evolve into something that is not negative, not cheeky, not rude, but really I'm good at what I do, and I know I'm good, and I'm going to keep getting better, and I'm going to keep experimenting, and I'm not scared to get outside the box and to try new things. Do you agree with that analysis, or do you think it's something else?
I don't see totally like the way you see it. I see, first of all, you're talking about all those things that we have. I think chutzpah came a lot from what we don't have. I mean, here in Israel, when we came here, right, we have no like no
natural resources.
How do you say it?
Natural resources.
Yeah, no natural resources. We're surrounded by enemies. All we have is ourselves and our Jewish brain, okay, or Israeli brain, or whatever you call it. And I think because we didn't have a choice, what we had is each other and just inventing ourselves all the time. I think this is everybody's talking about that as a big part of the startup nation is because of that chutzpah. Again, as you say, the good part of the chutzpah. Of course, unfortunately, I can also talk about the bad part of chutzpah, because it's not only good, but at least I can tell you even about myself. I think it's something that helps me go on, because I would probably go up to someone if I meet him and start talking to him, even if I don't know him. I have, of course, today, after a few miles and doing whatever it is that I'm doing. But like you said, I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the vision and where I'm heading. I know I'm doing a good thing, and I can just go on with it. And I think it's because I have no choice. Okay, if I wouldn't do it, no one's going to do it for me. And us as Jews here in Eretz Israel, if we didn't do it, we weren't here. So it's not what we had, it's what we didn't have that had to, like kick our asses and say, okay, you want to succeed, sorry, you just go and do it, go and get it. No one's going to help you.
So, I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how they got Democrats and Republicans to get in the same room around a table of food. And all of a sudden you start eating, you start feeling good. Maybe you have a drink of a beer or a glass of wine or whatever. And all of a sudden you're not Democrat and a Republican anymore. You're just a human being. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, just for the record, I want the audience to know these were not questions that I planned ahead of time. As Merav, you know this because I didn't send you any questions. So this is just totally off the top of my head. But I'm wondering if, what role can food play in Israel's relations, certainly with the Palestinians, but not only. Have you thought about that at all?
I didn't think about it too much, but I can say that food is everything. It's a connector. It's an unbelievable connector. Every place I've been all over the world, and I've been and I'm meeting people from all over the world, here or wherever it is, you start talking about food. Of course, if you have wine around the table, that really is, that's even, more amazing. But even without it, when you start talking about food, and as I said, oh, wow, this is so tasty. How do they make this? How did I make it? Do I eat something like that? No, at our place, we do it a bit different. No, I've never tasted something like that. It's always a reason for a conversation. It's very easy to connect through food. As I said at the beginning, at least for us, for Foodish, food is not the target. It's not it's a platform. It's the way we deal with things. It's what helps us deal with our Jewish identity. It's not what we want to do. Of course, we do everything around food, but it's what helps us make exactly what we're doing now, right? We're talking about our Jewish identity, but the food is the reason to do it. So sitting around the table You don't need to have any thing to talk about. If you have the food, if you have interesting food, if you have, it's already a reason why to talk around everybody. I mean, different food that you haven't tasted before, it starts a conversation.
Absolutely. I want to get to you as a female entrepreneur, and I want to read a quote that I found online that you said, quote, "I think that we as a country, as the startup nation with many successful startups, should be at the cutting edge not only of the most advanced technologies, but also leading social trends for change to improve the industry. It is very important to create models and success stories of women entrepreneurs at the global level, because ultimately it is all about education. And by creating those examples for young women, we can truly shape not only the face of society, but also unleash the financial potential for every local ecosystem." Um, talk to us
I said
about
that.
what it's like to be, you did in
Okay.
2017. I know it was a little bit long ago, but talk to us about, your journey as a female entrepreneur in Israel, what that's been like, and what you can share about maybe some lessons learned for people, especially female entrepreneurs around the world.
Okay, so when I started my social doing around women entrepreneurs, it was, as I told you, in 2012 when I had the breast cancer. And the funny thing was, why did I started it? Because I was, after my treatments, going to work from a co-work space in Israel, one of the first ones here. And before we had WeWork here and everything. And sitting there looking around me, I saw 99% male entrepreneurs. It was just the first co-work space in Israel. The startup ecosystem just started here. And there were hardly any women. Out of, let's say, 500 people working there, maybe 20 were women. And I said to myself, okay, this place is amazing. And it was also designed like a men's club, with all the leather sofas. You just needed the cigar and you could feel at home. And I said to myself, I want just a place exactly like this. The only thing that I want to be different, and this was how WMN started, is to have at least one woman as a CEO or founder in each startup. The rest will come from itself. And this is how WMN started. And what happened was, and people were, first, I didn't even know if there's a need for that, because I thought, people are going to say to me, why do you open a place only for women? And of course, people told me you're opening a ghetto for women. And I said, listen, first of all, it's not a place only for women. You're a startup, come work with me. Just please, I want you to have at least one female as a CEO or one of the founders. It's not that hard. And the great thing that happened was, because it was other startups coming to work from WMN, were very, very early stage. So it was usually a founder and a CTO. Unfortunately, the CTO was always a man, but the founder was a woman. So the teams that joined WMN were men and women. It was like a 50-50. So we grew up very fast with a lot of startups. They were 50-50. So we had men and women, but I had female entrepreneurs working with me. And as I said, people from all over the world started coming to see it and so on. And what I'm very proud to say today, not that WMN was, it was the first of its kind, but there was a lot of other people, a lot of other women doing amazing stuff for women entrepreneurs in the tech ecosystem, but we were really one of the veterans. And today, 10 years later, I can tell you that it's not that there's no need for WMN. We're a very strong community, but there are so many amazing communities and organizations and activities that are doing amazing things to have them to have really young girls look up to and have role models. And I think not that that our life has changed, and let's say we're not 2%, we are now maybe 5 or 7%, okay, which is still nothing, but I'm very optimistic. I can see and feel the change. And I just came back just a week ago, not even a week ago, from Basel. There was the 125 years for the Jewish Congress since, Herzl founded the State of Israel. And there were so many women over there. And I was so happy, proud, glad, whatever you can say. And I think I wrote a post that the amazing thing was that it didn't feel even that someone was working for it. Although I know they did. I know they were working to have a lot of women entrepreneurs over there. But when just walking around the room, the Congress, I felt, wow, it's normal. It's normal that there are so many female entrepreneurs here. It didn't feel something weird that someone had to, sometimes you need to like have, in Hebrew, you say, ani isha machmad. It's like, how do you say it in English?
I'm not sure. I don't know that one.
Okay, you like want to, okay, there's a panel of men, they need to have a woman inside. So they will bring me as not a trophy, like a kishut.
Yeah, maybe affirmative action.
Yeah, like, okay, we need to have a woman, so we'll have one woman here to color the panel. But over there, no, it didn't feel like that. It felt that it was very normal. Half men, half women. Everybody was working together. There was no woman issue. It wasn't an issue. I don't want to have double women. I hope one day there will really be no need for WMN. We still need it, but I mean, there's so many other groups doing it. So WMN is just one of them. And hopefully one day we will not need anyone to speak for the women, okay? We still need to, but over there in that Congress, I really felt like it's very normal. There's no need for it. There's men, there's women, okay? Sababa, everybody's doing their job.
You know, in the last 125 years since the first Zionist Congress, I think it was 1897, up until now, I mean, you look at the story of Zionism, and it's very male dominated. Of course, you have females, you have Golda Meir, you have a few other females, but it really is heavily male dominated when you look at really the core Zionist leaders from then up until now. I'm wondering now, looking 125 years into the future. So by the time we celebrate the 250th B'ezrat Hashem anniversary of the first Zionist Congress, you know, how can women play a bigger role in the Zionist story?
It's a very big question. I'm not sure I have the answer. As I said, I think there are a lot of organizations working towards that now. I just got a WhatsApp today from Elad that he and his wife Roni have founded an amazing project called Shua Na'ara, the week of the teenager, the women teenager. I don't know how you say it in English. They started an amazing project that they have women entrepreneurs speak to teenagers in high schools all over the country. I think last year they had like 1,200 different talks in the same week. And all they do is have young teenagers get inspiration from women that are like me, okay? Not because it's specifically me. I mean, like grown-ups that have already done a thing or two in their lives and are entrepreneurs. And they have role models to look at. And this is just one project, and it's amazing, but it has impact. And I think today there are so many, there's a woman called Hannah Rado, which is really one of the amazing female entrepreneurs here in Israel, impact entrepreneurs. She built places all over Israel, but in the social and the geographic periphery, giving work to women in Mitzpe Ramon, Tzfat, a lot of places in the periphery that are, she's building places for them to have a job that you can do remote. They can get great money for what they're doing, and she's selling the services to regular companies. So if you have projects like Hannah Rado, like Roni and Elad and so on, I really truly believe that it's one part of the solution. But of course, the major part should come from the government and from the sector tziburi, the how do you say it?
Yeah, the public sector.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about the museum, going back to the Museum of the Jewish People, because one of the things that stood out to me when I went there, first as a visitor and then did some projects there, is how high-tech intensive it is. You know, I was at Yad Vashem, I've been to some other museums, both in Israel and around the world, and it's pretty low-tech, if any tech at that. When I walked into Anu, I just said, holy crap, this feels like Israel. This feels like Tel Aviv. Talk to us, you know, you coming from tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, talk to us about, you know, how you guys are using technology and maybe some plans for the future of continuing to use technology to not just connect people around the world, but deliver experiences, digital experiences, I guess, virtual and augmented reality in the future. What are some of the things that you can share with us on that front?
I'll tell you the truth. I'm not a part of who built the museum or planned it, or I don't really know exactly to explain about, you know, how it became what it is. I know the museum, of course, by heart, and it's very interactive and has a lot of tech. I don't exactly know how to answer the part about the museum. I can tell you just about Foodish. that you've probably seen, of course, the food interactive over there in the museum, which is one of the two most popular interactives in the museum. One of our plans is, of course, to do something with VR in our next exhibition that's going to happen in Foodish. But I'm not sure I can share with you too much for now, but definitely technology and innovation are the two major things that we need and are going to use in order to להעביר to my English
To
sometimes.
transfer,
Yeah, to transfer what we want to say to everyone.
And I want to also ask you, one of the big issues in the Jewish world is a growing disconnect in many ways between Israeli Jews and diaspora Jews. We know there's a lot of programs, Birthright, Taglit, Masa, tons of different, the Sochnut sends Israelis around the world. And it's not that they're not working, but I don't know if they're able to reach the scale that can have the impact on a widespread basis that ultimately creates the kind of change or transformation that is important, I think, not just in this subject, but in many subjects. But as it relates to food, I mean, to me, it feels like if there is a silver bullet solution to connecting Israeli Jews and Jews around the world, it's food, is it not?
Totally. Well, we're doing it through a few verticals. One, the museum has education programs that are reaching over 50,000 kids all over the world every year, or 100,000, sorry, just cut them in half. There are three different programs. One is called the Sipur Mishpachti, Family Story. The other one is going the intergeneration connection, and the third one is the Jewish Lens. And each one of them is really amazing. They have education programs for in different kind of population, and we're kind of baking in Foodish into each one of them. I can tell you, like I was speaking today to one of the school, head of one of the schools we're working with. And what we're going to do now is, of course, have the children working there with the community around them, interviewing and documenting people from their community around how they celebrate holidays and what kind of food they used to have and so on, and taking recipes and videos and pictures. And it's going to all be up in our website at the end of the day. And they will have like a story and recipe cookbook for them and their community, downloaded from our website and so on. So we're starting to build all those education programs. One we're doing now is called Jewish Lens. So the Jewish Lens, again, it's a program that has nothing to do with that. It was a lot before Foodish. But now what we are doing with them, because it's around photographs, we joined forces with Photo Israel, which is the largest photograph exhibition here in Israel. And we're doing groups of phototherapy with elderly people, again, around their memories and around their Jewish food and the way they celebrated holidays and so on. So it's very new, everything. Foodish is just now formally launching. So let's talk in about 5 years. I really hope, if you're asking me what's my vision, it's just what you say. I really hope we will have impact to all of the Jewish world. I don't want to sound, too much, but I really believe in it. Food is the way to get to Jews all over the world, to connect to each other and to their identity. And the food is our vehicle. And I really think we can do it. It just takes time. That's something I need to remind myself, because as an entrepreneur, I'm used to doing things from today to tomorrow, right? I always say when I do talks that my, the telephone screensaver says, hold your horses, because by the minute I think of something, I want it to happen tomorrow. And it doesn't really, it can't even always happen tomorrow. So it takes time, more than I thought. But I really, truly believe that if we'll talk in a few years, it will be an amazing impact, global impact through the food.
Absolutely. I want to end the podcast by asking you your top 5 Jewish foods. And I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about your top 5. I'm going to start with my top 5, and then we're going to go to you.
Top 5 Jewish foods?
That's right. So number 1 is sabich. Number 2 is chaime. Number 3 is kubet. Number 4 is shakshuka. And number 5, I have to go as an Ashkenazi with matzah ball soup. All right, over to you. Your top 5 Jewish foods, not necessarily in any order, but your top 5. Go ahead.
Okay, so kubate, the one that my grandmother used to make. Of course, matzo ball soup, kigel. My ex-husband's sister used to make amazing fish. It's kind of chaime, so I call it Shoshi's fish. And challah, of course. It should be the first, as a matter of fact.
That's right. Merav, thank you so much for taking the time. Best of luck. And let's talk in a few years when you've built the world's biggest Jewish platform.
Hopefully. Thank you so much for having me.